And over the years, Farmers Union has honored a few members and friends with what we call our Meritorious Service Award. These awards recognize great contributions to Farmers Union's mission and values, as well as the betterment of our country and world. At this point, I'd like to welcome to the stage Mark Watney, North Dakota Farmers Union President, to help me present our first award.
Well, thank you, Rob, and I'm really pleased to be up here tonight because I get to introduce a person that I believe is a friend of mine and somebody that's really had influence on agriculture for well over 40 years in the hard work she did back in the early 80s. And for those of you that have farmed back in the 80s understand the challenges and the stuff we went through to try to survive, and Sarah was a key player in helping many farmers survive. So, hailed as a giant killer in egg law by the nation, Sarah Vogel is an advocate, author, and one of the foremost agriculture lawyers in the United States. Her debut memoir, The Farmer's Lawyer, shared her historic plight as a young single mother during the 1980s farm crisis when she took on her first case and sued the federal government on behalf of thousands of farmers nationwide who were in the danger of losing their farms and livelihoods. She was the first woman elected state commissioner of agriculture in U.S. history. She was born in North Dakota to a family with roots in the Nonpartisan League and has fought for decades to implement the progressive politics of the NPL. We also have some kind words from some friends to share. If we can get that played on the screen now.
It's an honor to congratulate Sarah Vogel for the National Farmers Union Meritorious Achievement Award. It's the highest award that National Farmers Union gives. And in 1983, Sarah Vogel single-handedly saved the farm for thousands of FNHA borrowers across the United States. And it's a remarkable story of compassion, legal action, and an amazing victory. Sarah wrote this book about the whole experience, The Farmer's Lawyer. It's a great read, a real-life drama, and it's well-written. It's a real page-turner about the case and the outcome. It's the story of a young lawyer who takes on the U.S. Agriculture Department and wins. I met Sarah when I lobbied for the North Dakota Farmers Union at the state legislature when I was vice president in the late 1980s and early 1990s. She was elected Commissioner of Agriculture in 1988 and served for 2 four-year terms. She was highly respected, popular, and when she spoke at various committee hearings, the legislatures paid attention, believe me. During her tenure, she established many initiatives such as the Marketplace of Ideas for Rural Economic Development, from that to the introduction of flea beetles to control leafy spurge weeds on grassland. She was always busy and always in demand. Her main accomplishments are impressive, and I personally know that what's uppermost for Sarah is the preservation of the family farm. Her work for the family farm continues today, and where Sarah sees injustice, she seeks justice. So congratulations again, Sarah. Sue and I wish we could be there with you to help you celebrate. It's a well-deserved honor. Enjoy.
Hey, Sarah, congratulations. I can think of so few people who deserve this award more than you do. No one has bled for North Dakota farmers and for American farmers more than you have. And I was there during the tough times when you were putting your family's finances at risk so that you could represent so many great family farmers in our state and across the country. So congratulations on your book, congratulations on your advocacy, but mainly what I want to talk about is the enormous heart that you have for for everyday working Americans, reflective in your deep roots in the nonpartisan league and democratic politics in North Dakota, your work as Ag Secretary or this head of the Department of Agriculture in North Dakota, amazing work that you did as our Ag Commissioner, and of course, you and I serving as the first ever North Dakota majority, Democrat, NPL, but also female majority on the Industrial Commission, where I think we did terrific work at the Banquet, North Dakota State Mill, and looking at student loans, looking at so many of the tough issues that we were confronting in oil and gas regulations. So congratulations, Sarah, my friend, and more importantly, a friend to North Dakota and a friend to agriculture throughout the country.
Congratulations, Sarah Vogel, on receiving the Meritorious Service Award for Farmers Union and World Agriculture. I first got to know Sarah during the 1980s. I was a beginning farmer and a farm credit counselor. Sarah was a lawyer representing financially struggling family farmers with a compassion and a zeal and a tenaciousness unique to Sarah. She took on the federal government and won in a class action lawsuit that lasted for many years. It nearly cost her everything. Later, after being elected as North Dakota's Agriculture Commissioner, Sarah became my first and only real boss. Well, not counting Anita, that is. Sarah Vogel, the farmer's lawyer, as good a person as I have ever known. Congratulations, my friend Sarah Vogel. You deserve this honor.
It's now my honor to present Sarah Vogel with the award for meritorious service to Farmers Union and to World Agriculture. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Let's get a picture over here.
Now I have to talk. I'm just absolutely overwhelmed by this honor. Thank you, Mark, Roger, Heidi, and Robert. I talked to Robert earlier today. Thank you. I'm like so deeply moved, and I appreciate all of you. And I know many of you from around the country. But tonight, I have to give a special shout out to the North Dakota Farmers Union, because they're the ones who brought me to this party. We go back quite a way. When I was just a little kid, I was taken to Farmers Union meetings by my father, who wasn't a farmer, but he was the local Farmers Union lawyer. Even after the passage of many years, I remember the summer picnics, the watermelon, lots of games, lots of food, and it being Farmers Union, lots of debate about farm policy. And maybe that's where I got my start on farm policy work, through osmosis as at Farmers Union picnics. And I think that's how you do it today, yeah. My entire career working at the intersection of law and politics, Farmers Union has been an incredible resource. In the Coleman versus Block case, which was mentioned earlier, and that I wrote about in my book, The Farmer's Lawyer, the underpinnings to that book was a study by the National Farmers Union called Depression in Rural America Report. And that is what made judges and legislators believe that I wasn't just exaggerating about the challenges my 9 lead plaintiffs had. It was built on the foundation of farmers' unions' work. And this report shared the results of 9 field hearings, hundreds of farmer witnesses, and the plight of farmers in every corner of the United States. And it didn't just help my lawsuit, it also helped impetus to Congress and state legislators in the 1980s to adopt a whole series of laws that would protect family farmers throughout the country. So, thank you. And as mentioned, I am the first woman in U.S. history to have been elected as a Commissioner or Secretary of Agriculture, and that wouldn't have happened either but for the support of the North Dakota Farmers Union. And thank you very much for that opportunity. And when I became Ag Commissioner, many of the successes in that office were due to whom I hired to work in the Department of Agriculture. Even though Roger kind of blew the secret, I want to say that even before I was sworn in, when I was still campaigning, I ran into I was at the McLean County Farmers Union meeting, and I asked a young farmer who had been a credit counselor and with whom I was pretty impressed if he would be my first hire. And actually he took the job and started the job before I even got there. And he was a pretty good choice, I'd say. And I think you know him, Roger Johnson. Then looking back at the speeches that I gave, I think I went to every single Farmers Union convention the whole time I was Commissioner of Agriculture, and many since then. And I just want to share that, without sounding like too much of a braggart, that I received more standing ovations from the North Dakota Farmers Union than I have in front of any other audience. And tonight, after the passage of about 4 decades, I'm going to share my secret on getting those standing ovations. I'd write out my speech, and every few paragraphs, I'd simply insert a verbatim paragraph from the North Dakota Farmers Union Statement of Policy and Action. It never failed. The folks in the crowd would leap to their feet, applauding again and again. So tonight, I'd like to try that standing ovation technique one more time, because this might be the last time I have a chance to speak at the National Farmers Union and hopefully get another standing ovation. So here goes. I advocate for fair agriculture markets, and I support reforming the Packers and Stockyards Act. Improving price discovery in cattle markets. Allowing the right to repair equipment. Diversifying marketing opportunities. Antitrust enforcement. And of course, saving the family farm system of agriculture. Thank you.
Where would you like them? Let me take notes here. Yeah. I wish I'd known that secret a little earlier. Oh, well deserved, Sarah.
That was fun.
that was phenomenal. Alrighty. Those giants in Farmers Union, they always have tricks up their sleeves, right? I only wish she might have shared that secret with me, a little earlier so that I could take advantage of it. But no, very well deserved, Sarah. Thank you so much for your service. Now, to help me present our next award, I'd like to welcome Minnesota Farmers Union President Gary Werdish and Council Dave Velde up to the stage.
Sarah, that's a hard act to follow. Yeah. Flip the page here.
Get some notes down there, Doug, okay? You gotta work on this.
We're
We're killing a little time for you here. Here we go.
Yeah. Doug, he showed us his notes and he said same thing. How do I follow that? But this morning, Dave and myself and President Rob LaRue, we visited, and I told Dave, he'll be coming up here helping me present this. And Dave said, "What in the hell are we going to say about Doug Peterson?" And I said, "Well, we'll make some stuff up." And President LaRue, he piped in too. He said, "Boy, I wish I had some tapes of them telephone calls when I was working for Chairman Peterson when Doug called me." So.
Well, my mother always taught me that if you can't say something nice about somebody, don't say anything at all. So here are my thoughts, Doug.
Okay, moving on.
We're some of your best friends, Doug.
National could have given us some more stuff to talk about up here, but I guess, I'll start here. Doug Peterson served as president of the Minnesota Farmers Union for 14 years and retired from that role in 2016. After growing up on his family farm south of Madison, Doug was a teacher, a coach, before returning to run the family farm. Doug was elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives in 1990 and was re-elected 5 times. In the House, he founded and served as chair of the Right to Be Rural Coalition. Doug was pretty proud of that. I remember that, and he rightly so. We've kind of forgot about that. We've been referred to as flyover country for too long. And it's time we bring that back. And Doug is the leader on that. He had the foresight and see that way back then, the importance of it. As president of the Minnesota Farmers Union, Doug also created the Minnesota Cooks program to promote and support a local and sustainable food system. Along with that, we also produced the Emmy Award-winning program, the Farm Fresh Road Trip, with public TV. Doug is also an accomplished artist, ranging from acrylic paintings to drawings, sculpture, and ceramics. Doug says that as an art teacher, he always encouraged exploration of all types of media. I'll go back, I'll go back to my years of knowing Doug, and I consider, we like to pick on him, we have the opportunity now, but we might pay for it later. But my first getting to know Doug was my first involvement in Farmers Union, probably in the 80s, 90s. And I know in the 90s it was probably the time, that's when Doug got elected to the legislature. We were going through what we called the feedlot wars in Minnesota. And there was an attempt by some to open up our corporate farming law to allow for more livestock to get in. You know, that was just coming off the farm crisis. That was the panacea. That was going to solve all our problems if we just opened up the corporate farm law and it, you know, have all the big livestock operations come in. Doug was a leader in that, helping tamp that down. And, you know, that's my first, Doug was solid on that. I'd go in and lobby. It was probably one of the first times I met him going into his office. You never knew exactly where Doug was, but you always knew what his position was. He was very clear, and I think that served him well as a legislator and also as a president of Minnesota Farmers Union and serving on, and it served us as national well too, in the National Farmers Union. He never wavered. He was always supporting family farms. Family farms, you know, he wasn't representing farmers. He was representing family farmers, and there's a difference. We have some issues in Minnesota now with water usage up in the central part of the state. RDO Offutt owns a lot of land, raises potatoes. Through the drought years, they were pumping more water than they should. And there was some articles, letters to the editor in the Star Tribune opposing, you know, bringing that to the attention. And Ron Offutt, the chairman or the owner of Offutt Farms, also the largest John Deere dealer in the dealership in the world too. He put their positions of why they were doing this, and they're, you know, doing their best. They're environmentally, they were just terrific and all that type of stuff. But then he signed it Offutt Family Farms. There's a difference, you know. And I think everybody in this room knows that difference, you know, and Doug certainly did.
He saw the opportunities that existed in energy, for example, to lead the effort in the House, the State House, with respect to renewable fuels, and what that could mean for rural Minnesota and the family farms that populate that community. He's bold, boisterous, obnoxious, but never failing to represent the values that this organization is all about, what we hold near, what we hold close to our heart. And he embodies, massive though he is, the image, those philosophies and attitudes which are so important. And he was an effective, ready advocate in the legislature and on the board at NFU to bring forth what was needed to be addressed, decisions that needed to be made, action that needed to be taken. And so I'm glad to be able to recognize you for the work you have done in Farmers Union, and on behalf of the organization, thank you.
Touch on that a little bit, Doug. You know, Doug was the lead author, as Dave mentioned, the lead author in the House to pass the Minnesota mandate ethanol bill. Not only jump-started the ethanol within Minnesota, but really it had a big influence in starting the ethanol industry in the United States. But along with that, it was one time Doug went to an automobile dealership looking for a car for a staff member. The staff or government relations person, Tom Peterson at the time.
Is this really a true story?
Well, this one I think is. After I tell you, yeah, this one is. Anyway, Tom Peterson, our government relations director at the time, who is now our Minnesota Commissioner of Agriculture, I got to give Doug a lot of credit for training Tom in too and helping him grow his feet, and he's just turned out to be an excellent Commissioner of Ag. But anyway, they were in this dealership looking, they're going to buy Tom a car for, you know, Farmers Union car, and I think Doug asked the dealer or the salesman, you know, can this car burn ethanol? And salesman said, "Oh, you don't want to burn that crap," or something to that effect, you know. And wasn't the right things to say to Doug. I I don't think Doug was short. He can tell. I think he said a few choice words and they left the place. So, needless, they didn't buy from that dealership. So, can you think of any more lies?
No, well, yes, but I believe that it's time. Do we have a tape to present?
No, we have a few special messages from a few special
Great.
guests. So,
Let's hear those.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Tom Peterson, Minnesota Department of Agriculture Commissioner, and it's my pleasure today to congratulate Doug Peterson, my former boss and president of the Minnesota Farmers Union. Doug has been a champion for the Farmers Union for a long time, and his earning the Meritorious Service Award, I couldn't think of somebody better. His passion for making sure farmers get a good price and are well represented is second to none. I enjoyed working with Doug for many years, and I still enjoy his friendship and that he still remains active in Farmers Union to this day. Thanks, Doug, for all you did on behalf of farmers, but also Farmers Union to take it to new heights. Congratulations, this is a well-deserved honor.
Hi, Doug. Congratulations on receiving the Meritorious Service Award. I remember when you were first elected president of Minnesota Farmers Union, I think you were a little overwhelmed, but you pitched right in to help the organization and make changes and improvements. You were full of ideas, but one of the things I respect most about you is that you always listened when anyone had an idea or suggestion. Many of the ideas you turned into actions continue to strengthen Minnesota Farmers Union, including the Minnesota Cooks Program and the MFU Foundation auction at the state convention. You had the foresight to buy our office location in St. Paul and to turn our MFU building at the state fair into a coffee shop. Behind your sometimes gruff exterior was a kind man who treated my mother and my mother-in-law with warmth and friendliness when you visited our farm for a meeting with Bill Hunt of the NRCS. You worked closely with Farmers Union Agency and Greenview and moved the organization forward in a number of ways. But I think your greatest achievement at Farmers Union was hiring a young man in whom you saw great potential to lead our government relations team. That young man is now Minnesota's Agriculture Commissioner, Tom Peterson. Thank you, Doug, for your service to Farmers Union, having an open mind and willingness to listen, and for helping to strengthen family farm agriculture in Minnesota.
Peterson, congratulations on your Meritorious Service Award. Much deserved. Doug was a visionary in all aspects of his career as a teacher, coach, farmer, state legislator, and president of Minnesota Farmers Union. He taught students appreciation of art, as well how to block and tackle on the football field, or tumble or jump on the mat for gymnastics. He connected with local farmers when he farmed, and as a state representative, he wrote and passed legislation to make ethanol mandatory in gasoline and to fund ethanol plants. As president of Minnesota Farmers Union, he knew the importance of the conventional farmer, had insight into niche farms, and was promoting and practicing farm to fork before it was popular. His insight and big picture thinking brought the best in Minnesota Farmers Union. He brought them to the forefront and moved them into ideas and concepts that were ahead of their time. His leadership style as chairman of our Farmers Union Insurance Agency allowed us to grow and change our model for the agency to be successful in years to come. He promoted the agency, and we never doubted the support he gave us. As you have heard, he's a multi-talented man with vision for the future. And there are some things Doug never forgot. That is, we need to be the voice for the people that don't have one. And that all citizens should have access to healthy foods, and how Farmers Union can help bring this change. He carried these beliefs out as the leader of Minnesota Farmers Union. To Ellie, thank you for your support in Doug's career. It made a difference. Again, congratulations, Doug, on your award, and have a great convention.
Come on up, Doug.
I only got 3 minutes. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Either one? All right. I've always been a little bit to the left anyway, so right, left. I think that's correct. I don't know if I knew that guy up there. Anyway, I'll tell you what. I only wrote, like a little typing page, and the print's real big, so I'll give you only about an hour. Okay. Anyway, I heard Valdi's buying drinks afterwards. There are ways to get back at you. Thank you, Gary. And Rob, thank you. But the biggest thanks I want to probably give, it would be to my wife, Ellie. She and I have been together since 9th grade. And 2 children, one of who followed me in the legislature for 6 years, and the other one for all good respect and trying to understand what he does, but he's a research scientist at Cornell at the Ag School. So, we found ways to do things as a family, and without your support, Ellie, I could have never gone forward on any of this. Thank you. Sometimes one forgets how many battles of policy they have been in on. And I think before I was a state representative, before I was a farmers union person, and rural people would know this. When I grew up, my telephone number was a long and a short. Anybody out there? Yeah, there's 2 shorts and 2 longs, those kinds of things. It was called a 4-party line. One of the things I first did was I organized a bunch of people in the Lac-La-Parle County, where I'm from, western Minnesota, into kind of raising hell with Centel. They didn't care much about us because we were just a few dollars here or there, pretty small population being rural and deep rural. So then I got elected in 1990 to the legislature. One of the first bills outside of the ethanol piece was that I mandated in the state of Minnesota that there be no more 4-party lines in the state of Minnesota. And I passed it. That's right. And 3 years later, we got a computer with dial-up. Remember those days? Yep. So those are some of the things. And the feedlot wars, that was hell. That was hell on earth, because there was people out there that wanted to change agriculture to a corporate entity. And we're really lucky in the state of Minnesota because we have the anti-corporate farm law. And I can remember when Tom Peterson and I took on Xcel Energy, they had 23 lobbyists. We just had 2, myself and Tom, and we beat them on a windmill footprint and corporate ownership of land. 2 farm guys beat Xcel Energy, okay? And it isn't just the fact that it's 2 farm guys, it's the fact that there's an organization of people behind you. You can't do anything by yourself. You can go ahead and make all the speeches you want. You can sound really, really good on the corner. You can stand on soapboxes and all this and that, but until you have support from good people that are willing to risk things and are willing to put their shoulder in to your work and be part of this greater rural community, you don't have anything. And I was really lucky
as a state president, as a state legislator, to have that kind of support. I always say to rural legislators a couple of things. Be more than one question deep. So if you get asked a section question on something, you can actually answer it, because a lot of the guys I served with couldn't answer the second question. That's right. They can't answer the second question. They go back to the campaign speech. That ain't leadership, okay? And then the other thing I said to Tom when I hired him, we'll never lie. You go into a legislative office and you tell them what this side is thinking and what that side is thinking, and then put forward our position and tell them why it's important to rural people where you live. You're still rural. And I think he took that to heart. Wonderful, wonderful individual. But like I said, this organization, I could go through a lot of these wars I went through, until we made ethanol, and where's Carol? And there's some other people around that had their hands in ethanol plants in the state of Minnesota and other states, until we made it a bankable position where you went to a bank and you were able to put money down and borrow against it, and they could see that it was an economic benefit to the community. That's when it passed, not before. And I can tell you who was against it, which would be surprising. I'm not going to be doing that kind of partisan stuff now, but it was kind of interesting who was against and who was for it. But it really, really got down to this. Are we going to have a corporatized rural America where we just work for the man and they have their boot on our neck, and at the end of the day, they take the profit and we get nothing? We get that 16 cents on a gallon of milk or whatever it happens to be. We get nothing out of it. And you think of what we have built in this world. You think of what we have done as farmers and rural people, where the leadership comes for the states and the counties. That comes from rural areas. And you, every one of you sitting at this table tonight, should be proud of the fact you are supported by other farmers that are working to make it better. Better than we had it before, better than our parents had it before. And I've said this many times, and I'm not the one author that said, we stand on the shoulders of those that have come before us. Their hard work makes it your hard work. And when you get to policy, when you talk about this here right to repair, good God, you'd think that'd be smart, right? Right to repair? Well, if right to repair is correct, why don't we have the right to save our seed? Huh? Not a hell of a lot of difference there, is there? No. And to the national, maybe that little where you've invoked that other thing on the antitrust stuff, maybe you can bring it back to a class action lawsuit on seed savers and seed for rural people. It's very important. Like I've said before, you can't get any place unless you have help from everybody else. I will be indebted to people here in this room, to the friends that we've made over the years, to all of the people that we don't even know that are going to benefit from what you're going to do. And I always say to people, thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what you're going to do. And thank you for making a better future for the farmers. Family farmers and ranchers, don't forget about the ranchers. We're all in this together. And together we either are successful or we will fail. But by God, they will not put farmers in the dirt and treat them like dirt. We are the part of this country that makes America great, and we shall not be challenged or overcome. Thank you very much. Face is going to crack.
All right. Oh.
You're quiet in this room. Thank you.
We were buying your time.
Oh, is that right? I gotta get my speech I didn't write. It's not here.
Wow. What a great experience to be able to learn more about those giants, to be inspired by the work, and to be challenged by them to make sure that we're doing everything possible to continue to grow and to make additional progress. So thank you and congratulations once again to the Meritorious Service Award winners tonight. Tonight, as we reflect on Farmers Union's achievements of last year, we can also reflect on the fortunate, close working relationship that we've had with many lawmakers. This is also especially true with the current President Biden administration. Many of you saw firsthand how strong these relationships are during our fall fly-in meetings with the Department of Justice, the CFTC, and the White House. At this point, I would ask folks to turn your attention to the screens. I had the pleasure a short while ago to spend a few minutes with President Biden. Each time I have some time with him, I learn more about Delaware farms, and I'm reminded that we need to get a Delaware Farmers Union unit there. But anyway, I asked if he would present a few words of welcome here to the Farmers Union members.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Rob, for your leadership. And American farmers and ranchers, you're the backbone of the country. That's why we're making it easy for you to do business by strengthening our supply chain, rebuilding roads, bridges, ports, improving water systems, bringing high-speed internet to every community. And that's why the Inflation Reduction Act, it's a fancy sounding name, but it provides funding to keep you on your land doing what you do best, protecting, preserving our nation's soil, water, and air. And that's why we're promoting competition and fairness for farmers. You feed and fuel the nation. We rely on you. America owes you, and I thank you. We all thank you. May God bless our troops.
I might just share that I personally never miss an opportunity to use the term fairness for farmers, including with our commander-in-chief, and we're thrilled to continue to see that drumbeat continue across the country here. It's now time for the State of the Farmers Union. And this is always a really great opportunity for me, because as was kind of mentioned before from our previous speakers, whether it's referring to standing on the shoulders of those that came before us, the giants in our industry. When I stand before you, what I see are stories of advocacy, stories of struggles of achievement, adaptation, innovation, all of the things that encompass who we are as family farmers and ranchers. And it is truly humbling to be able to talk to you tonight about some of the things that we're doing within Farmers Union right now and where we hope to be going down the road. But I always want to make sure that I'm starting this conversation with a couple words of thanks. Once again, I give huge thanks to my family, to Mike, who I would also say deserves, at the very least, a gold star for having to journey from the farm in West Virginia with his in-laws, my mom and dad, across country, staying in a no-tell motel in Atlanta overnight because of challenges, struggling, quite literally losing some blood along the way. And in spite of that, managed to deliver my folks here tonight safely, and I'm thrilled to be able to have my parents, and Mike with me here tonight. This is my first chance as national president to be able to also personally extend this thanks to Mom and Dad for all of those experiences that many of us that grew up on family farms and ranches got to enjoy. Not just the hard work, not just, learning lessons, sometimes needing to be repeating challenges over and over. Will Robert ever learn how to avoid that problem? Eventually, I might learn a couple of things, but Mom and Dad were the type of parents, we probably have several in this room tonight, that gave their kids a lot of space to fail. Oh my God. There were times, I have to say, you'd ask for direction, and occasionally they would give it, right? They don't want you to get too hurt. But they wanted to make sure that we found our own path, that we found our own space, and that we found our own kind of way through life. And isn't that important for all of us? It's a great lesson, and one that I just want to make sure that I gave thanks to both of them here tonight. I will also share that this is their first time back to San Francisco in about 60 years. The last time they were here was actually on a dairy tour. I was probably being babysat at home back there, or if I was born. The State of the Farmers Union is united and strong. Hopefully you're getting a taste of that through our speakers, through talk about some of the work that we're doing, our Fairness for Farmers campaign. This notion of united and strong has been around for about 100 years within our organization. This concept, united and strong, first was really kind of mentioned and led through efforts to show our alliances with other workers and unions out there. It talked about the concept of market power, working together, the cooperative spirit, if you will, the importance of civic advocacy and engagement, really at the heart of who we are as Farmers Union, and learning from each other. This particular emblem is also a big part of our history, and indeed was even a theme for one of our conventions during those rough years of the 80s, when truly we needed to be united so that we can defeat the challenges at the time. At this point, we have a number of issues ahead of us that we're trying to work on right now. We have a farm bill ahead of us, and all the things that we want to see changed there. Certainly all those issues around competition that we talk about in Fairness for Farmers, and something that is over top of all of those issues in many ways, and that's the work of adapting to this changing climate and making sure that we can continue to make sure that our livelihoods have a future. I talk about us being strong in a number of ways. You heard this report a little earlier, that our membership continues to rise. And in fact, this is our 5th continuous year of growth. And I just want to explain how we're capturing something here. The growth that we're seeing in states, and we've seen huge growth in a few states, and strong growth through a number of others. North Dakota, congratulations. North Dakota is officially now the largest membership state country with a very strong showing this year in membership. We also saw big increases in membership in Arkansas, in Minnesota, Oklahoma, and Ohio. And I even want to give a shout out to one of our smaller states, Alaska, that saw a 200% increase in membership. This trend of continuous growth over a number of years is also coming on top of the pandemic. And let me tell you, in the membership space out there, the trend is the other way. The Farmers Union is bucking that, and I would argue that part of the reason why we are attracting growth is because of our message, because of our speaking truth to the issues that are out there, to the challenges that are before us, and delivering the solutions that will create real change. The other thing I would just add is there was a little talk about the financial report. We remain very strong and well-positioned with this rise in membership, with a strong financial position, even though I would argue it was tested this past year, continues to be with the markets, but we are ready for the challenges above us, or in front of us here. And your national board has been very focused since last convention on a couple of strategic visions that are before us right now. One of those is very much focused on membership and making sure that we're seeing this growth and hopefully we can see consistent growth across our entire footprint. It's a huge challenge for us, but the board is very much focused on making sure that we're creating the right environment to make that possible so that we can continue to get even higher growth into the future. Part of that is going to require additional revenue sources, and so this business side of Farmers Union, to make sure that we have the means and the capacity in order to carry this message forward. The board remains very much focused on that issue as well, and I'm proud of the work that they're doing. One year ago, we were faced with a very fresh and recent invasion that shocked the world, and a humanitarian crisis which continues to unfold today. In agriculture, we speak a lot about the impact that that has on supply chains, this Russian invasion of Ukraine. We speak about the disruptions for input, for fertilizer, and so many other components that are required for farmers and ranchers out there to do their job. But we also, within the Farmers Union, recognize and reflect and take action on that humanitarian side of the problem and the great need that exists within Ukraine right now as they fight this challenge. We put out a call for action. Farmers Union Industries stepped up with an incredibly generous donation to the World Food Program. National Farmers Union contributed to that. And then we put a call out to folks, individuals who we asked to step up and help with this contribution to make sure that we can provide some relief, some aid to those in Ukraine right now facing this invasion. And folks responded, $135,000 in donations from the Farmers Union family in that space. We are making this link for these donations continue today. We will make them available to everyone here and continue to have this opportunity for folks, should they choose to make sure that we are doing everything possible, both in terms of trying to mitigate the effects of the supply chain problems, but also as Farmers Union, also making sure that we're taking care of that humanitarian side. Part of what I want to do tonight is talk about some of the things that are going on in Farmers Union through our people and our stories. Because you hear me say this a lot, but all of our stories have such an impact. Know your power, right? From earlier. And there are a few examples here, but even as I'm telling these stories about a few individuals and some of the work that's being done out there, I want you to make sure that you're reflecting on those things that you're doing yourself or what you could do that you may not have thought about, and ways that you can use your own power, either locally, at the state level, or in some of our federal advocacy work that we're doing here. Before us here, many of you probably know her, Sarah Dane, farms in eastern Montana. She's a whiz on so many things. She's an incredibly strong leader. But I really want to focus on Sarah the farmer. Because Sarah, first of all, is, like so many in this room, one of the hardest working individuals I know. And she's always has challenges like so many farmers and ranchers have facing them on a daily basis. Is the equipment going to work? What's going to be that next problem? Is the weather going to cooperate? Are they going to pull out from the sugar beet contracts there? All kinds of challenges that she has to face. She brought her stories and her experience with her to Fly-In this past fall. Among the meetings that we sat in through there, I talked about the fact that we opened this up to so many of these other agencies that we face with. One of those is the Federal Trade Commission. Federal Trade Commission is the other agency that deals with antitrust issues. They also deal with right to repair. And much like, if you remember my observation about the Department of Justice and the fact that we were told we'd get 5 minutes with the principal there, they would only be able to meet with us for, a few minutes, and then, that was going to be the end of the meeting. But the meeting lasted a long time. Same thing. We go into the Federal Trade Commission. Sarah's along. I don't know, maybe a little shy. She sat down at the end of the table. We are engaging the chair of FTC, Lena Khan, and their staff. We're walking through the issue. We're talking about the experiences. We're talking about these particulars of what we would look for in terms of changes or enforcement, what we needed the FTC to do. We talked about the petition that was before them. And then as the conversation was going on, Sarah, the farmer, spoke up and spoke directly to the FTC chair, Lena Khan. And Sarah talked about going to the local equipment dealers, sometimes struggling to get their attention, struggling to get repairs when she needed them. She talked about the fact that where she's at in eastern Montana, it is miles and miles to find options and alternatives. And when you have beets that need to be pulled or you have other harvest issues, you don't have time. Those issues that many of us know here. But she spoke so clearly and so effectively, you could just see the gears in the FTC chair's mind starting to move and the lights coming on. And we know that those kind of efforts and those kinds of abilities to tell your story is what we are all about. It is our power, and we need to make sure we are taking every opportunity possible to make that happen. As part of Fairness for Farmers, we are now, through those stories, but also our social media hit, we are reaching 700,000 people since just September with our social media presence around this message. We are carrying this message out on the airwaves, in the radio, across 7 states with more to come. We are taking these stories, these personal stories, and amplifying them in lots of different ways. And we will continue to do that. I want to give a quick shout out to the way that we can actually make this possible and to lift up these stories is because of the strong support from, first of all, Farmers Union Enterprises once again stepping up to make sure that Farmers Union voice is out there. With that, we've had strong support as a result of this campaign from a number of states, including Oklahoma, Rocky Mountain, Texas, New England, Iowa, Missouri, Michigan, and others, stepping up again with contributions to make sure that we can get this message out there, that we need to bring competition back to agriculture. Here's a gentleman that folks may recognize. He's certainly been around the Farmers Union family a long time. Our own Doug Somke of South Dakota. Folks have probably heard a lot of Doug's stories, so forth, but I want to talk about an issue a little different from Fairness for Farmers, but another element of who we are as Farmers Union, and that is rural advocacy that's broader than agriculture, that's about our rural communities, and about one of the issues that affects all of us, and that is access to affordable and reliable health care. One of the first meetings I had out in South Dakota after coming on staff years ago with Farmers Union was in rural South Dakota. Doug dragged me around several counties, and we had all these meetings, and there was a hot debate about the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, and what this meant and what the value of it was. I hadn't seen yet the passion that Doug could bring to an issue and talking about the importance of access to rural health care. I mentioned last year members out here who have struggled with cancer and other life-threatening conditions and the devastation that it can have financially, certainly health-wise, without affordable, reliable health care. Doug, over the years, has taken that advocacy and it has also been met with his own challenges within the space. Folks who may not know, we know that COVID had a devastating impact across a number of our families and communities and so forth. COVID nearly took Doug's life. What saved him, the doctors claim, was the fact that he also made sure that he got the care that he needed, that he had the protection he needed. Otherwise, it could have been a very different story. Doug now takes that story as well as those stories about his neighbors who have lost their farms or had other devastating financial challenges, and he took it to the state with a coalition that fought in South Dakota to make sure that Medicaid expansion was available in the state of South Dakota. And by working in a broad coalition and making sure that the Farmers Union message was there, they had a very decisive victory this past election by getting the voters to convince the voters of South Dakota to pass that and bring greater access, particularly to low-income South Dakotans, but also for those that follow this issue. Medicaid expansion is also one of the things that makes sure that our rural hospitals that are struggling out there, that we lose too many of, that our rural senior housing and senior facilities struggle to survive out there. Medicaid expansion is going to make a difference there, and it's this lifetime commitment and the struggles, even personally and within our own families, that through that passion we can achieve real change. Now a little bit about on the education space and looking ahead. And we talk about leaders and the advocates and the stories and know your power. And the future is bright, I'm here to tell you, because we have so many powerful young leaders that are coming up through this organization and through our states. And we want to do everything possible to not only lift them up, give them their voice, get out of the way in some cases, and equip them with the tools to make them as effective as possible. I want to talk about a couple of these young leaders. First of all, the top center photo there. This is a young man, Ramondo Woods. Ramondo Woods is an incredible person. He is a farmer, an educator, and an entrepreneur. Jeff and I got to meet Ramondo when we were in Detroit with Michigan Farmers Union, part of a network of urban farms there in the city of Detroit, reclaiming a lot of the land there, producing food, and Ramondo goes into schools and teaches kids in Detroit where the food comes from, how food is grown, produces gardens in those spaces, and brings students out to the urban farm centers and passes that education and that knowledge along. an incredibly inspiring young man, and we are so fortunate to have him in the Farmers Union family. We need to make sure that we're continuing to give space so that we can continue to learn from him and make space for him to educate others there. We also have in here a number of other characters. I might just mention a couple of them. First of all, a young man who's not with us tonight, but Tim Bates. He's the gentleman in the hat there in the back of the Capitol. The shorter of the two, we have Dylan here tonight, who I'll also just highlight a bit. This is a young man from Oklahoma. The story I'd like to tell about Tim Bates is he was asked by the Oklahoma Farmers Union staff to participate in a meeting with a congressional member. I can't remember who it was. And he said, well, I can't do it. I don't have time. I need to be in the field, need to do some work. And what do I have to say? But they convinced him to join that meeting. He joined the meeting from inside the equipment, had his camera all set up and so forth. So the member of Congress had the perfect view of the field work that he was doing there. And there were questions, and there was a dialogue, an exchange about, what are you doing? What's going on? What does this mean? And Tim could talk about that because that's exactly what he knew about. And that was the value. Tim got a hook there on really how to raise your voice and talk about what farm needs are out there in a way that could be easily received and very authentically received by that member of Congress. It was incredible. That young man has since gone through our advocacy training with the taller gentleman there, Dylan, who came to advocacy training where we equip them with public speaking skills. They're put on, they have to produce something, they have to speak. They learn how to operate in a board setting and learn governance. We try to equip them with all of these things that will enable them to not only go up on Capitol Hill and have a successful meeting, but also go back to their communities. Join a co-op board. Join their local school board and participate in that local advocacy and make sure that they are effective. We've had tremendous success with that, and we have a number of folks who have done just that. We have folks who have come out of that program that now sit on their state farmers union boards, and we're expecting big things. We have another advocacy training coming up in just a few weeks, and we're hoping that folks will reach out and sign up to participate in that. I felt it only appropriate at this time and this year to lift up one of President Jimmy Carter's quotes. Our dreams are big, our hopes high, our goals long-term, and the path is difficult. But the only failure is not to try. Let's remind ourselves that President Jimmy Carter was a farmer and a humanitarian, and I know he would have made a damn good Farmers Union member. One of the things that most impresses, I think, everybody about this man's service is not just his term as commander-in-chief and time leading this country, but the way that he led this country after that period, leading by example. And that is what all of you do every day. And I want to just give thanks and tell you that you do have power. We have power in that space together, and this is how we're going to get our goals achieved. We have a lot of things on the horizon right now. We still have climate change. We have a lot of things to address. We have a farm bill, but I hope through the speakers that we've had, the speakers we're going to have later with the policy debate that we're all going to have over the next couple of days, that you will tap into that energy and that buzz in this room and really feel this almost a reigniting of this Farmers Union flame. and recognize that the work that's been going on for years, and in some cases a generation or so, of the Farmers Union values and mission and drive is achieving results. We're seeing some of those results. We'll even learn some over the next couple of days of things that are only being done in large measure because of the work you and those who came before us have done. And with that, I hope that we can all agree that the state of the Farmers Union is united and strong. Thank you. All right. We have just a couple quick announcements, and then we can get to dessert with the foundation event, which I really hope that a lot of you will be able to participate in. We do want to remind folks that the membership awards will be presented tomorrow morning.